Hi, second graders. It's Mrs. Shepherd here, and I wanted to introduce our learning for this week. This week, we are transitioning from learning about animals and their adaptations and how they survive in different habitats to focusing on plants. And that was part of what we started learning last week when we were talking about biodiversity, when we were talking about all the different types of life on Earth, which includes plants and animals. So now for the next few weeks, starting this week, we're transitioning our brains to talking about plants. And to do that, we are going to start this week with a little bit of review from things that we have learned in kindergarten and first grade if you've been at Bub School. But in case you haven't been at Bub School, or in case you've forgotten, this is the perfect time for you to remind your brain about the parts of a plant. And then we are going to learn about the parts of a flower specifically. And it's really important that we add this to our brains because in the following weeks, we're going to be learning about something called pollination and something else called seed dispersal. And in order to understand those bigger ideas, we have to understand plants, their parts, the parts of a flower, and even the plant life cycle, which I forgot to mention a second ago, but it's something else that we are going to review right at the beginning of this week. So let's get started with what we need to learn this week. Students will be able to label the parts of a plant, including the smaller parts of a flower. So the part that you have probably done before with me or with another teacher is labeling the parts of a plant. But we're going to review that, and then we're going to add the knowledge of the smaller parts of a flower. What are the parts inside of each flower, and why are they important? Our sentences for this week for you to be focusing on are I observe the So just being able to observe and label the parts of the plants and the parts of the flowers, but also kind of giving ourselves a little challenge to explain what each part does. So being able to say the leaves help the plant by blah, 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 blah. Or being able to say the helps the flower by blah, 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 blah. So being able to explain why that part is important to the plant or the flower. So scientists, thanks for watching this introduction. The next thing I'm going to do for you is read you a book, and that book will recap and remind you what we know about seeds, what we know about the plant life cycle already, and then it will start to talk about the parts of a plant and parts of a flower. So it's a really popular book, and I'm excited to read it for you. So I'll read it for you now. Bye, guys. See you in just a sec. All right, second graders, I just moved my camera and got my book, and now we're ready. So this is the read aloud that we're going to do to start our learning for the week. And this book is a book that in first grade, if you were a scientist with me, we read a few pages out of it, but right now we're going to read the entire book. And it's a very famous book because it talks about seeds, it talks about the life cycle of a plant, it talks about flowers and the flower parts, it talks about pollination, it talks about seed dispersal. So it's a really good book to kick off what we're going to be learning about over the next few weeks. And on some pages I'll read kind of quickly, and on other pages I'm going to really slow down and focus because they're the more important ones to us for this week. So this book is titled From Seed to Plant by Gail Gibbons. Most plants make seeds. A seed contains the beginning of a new plant. Seeds are different shapes, sizes, and colors. All seeds grow into the same kind of plant that made them. A sunflower seed grows into a sunflower. An acorn will grow into an oak tree. Many plants grow flowers. Flowers are where most seeds begin. and it has zinnia, apple tree flowers, dandelions, and asters. So just giving us some exposure to different types of shapes of flowers. Now this next page we're going to focus on quite a bit, so let me try to make sure you can see it really well. A flower is made up of many parts. So let's start by looking at this diagram that they've labeled, and let's start with the parts that are really big and obvious. So first you see it's like they cut the flower in half so that you can see the inside parts that are normally hidden. The big pink parts are the petals, and you're probably familiar with petals. They can be different colors, different shapes, different sizes. Just look at the petals on all these flowers on this page, okay? They're different. And in this case, they are pink, and the job of the petal is to attract the pollinators to the plant. So it makes it look beautiful and bright, and the different shapes are really interesting. When we're talking about the smaller parts of a flower, we're talking about these parts here on the inside. So let me take a second to describe all of them. In the center, the very, very center of the flower, is the pistil. So this whole part here we call the pistil. The sticky part at the top of the pistil we call the stigma. Okay, so this top part that's really sticky is the stigma, and its job is to get the pollen from other flowers, from the bees or the butterfly's legs, and have it stick to the sticky part, the stigma at the top. Then you have the whole thing is the pistil, and at the bottom of the pistil are the egg cells called the ovules, and they're in the ovaries down here, okay? The second big part on the inside is called the stamen, and each flower has many stamens. Each one of these is a stamen. So in this picture, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the stamen, there's 2 parts. The stamen makes the pollen. So the stamen makes the pollen. The stigma's trying to get the pollen, okay? The stamen makes the pollen, and at the top of it, and that is there are 2 parts here, the filament and one other part I forget at the moment. But they are here to support the pollen makers so that it is closer to where the bees and the butterflies are going to be. So you have the stamens and the pistils. Before the seed can begin to grow, a grain of pollen from the stamens must land on the stigma at the top of the pistil of a flower that's the same as itself. That is called pollination. So somehow pollen from the stamen has to end up at the stigma, the sticky part at the top of the pistil of a same type of flower. Pollination can happen in many different ways. Often, it's just the wind that blows the pollen from flower to flower. Again, though, it has to be the same type of flower, a rose to a rose, a daisy to a daisy, okay? It doesn't have to be the same color flower, but the same looking type of flower. Bees, other insects, and hummingbirds help to pollinate too. While they visit flowers for their sweet juice called nectar, pollen rubs onto their bodies, and they don't even realize what they're doing. So here's a bee trying to get the pollen and the nectar, or trying to get the nectar and the pollens on its body. Same with the hummingbird, doesn't even realize it's rubbing onto its tummy. So then they go and carry the pollen to another flower where it comes off and accidentally rubs off onto the pistil. If a pollen grain from a flower lands on the pistil of the same kind of flower, it grows a long tube through the pistil down to the ovule. So piece of pollen gets here, oh, it's from the right kind of flower, it's from my same kind of flower, down it goes into the ovule. Now, if it's pollen from a different kind of flower, who cares? It just sits up here and it doesn't go down into the ovule. The seed then starts to grow inside of the flower, even as the flower starts to die. As the seed gets bigger and bigger, a fruit or a pod grows around the seeds. The fruit or the pod protects the seeds. So this part of the flower, guys, this ovule, these ovules, this is where the seeds start to grow, and this is the part that then ends up growing and growing and growing to turn into the fruit or the pod. When the fruit or the pod ripens, it breaks open and the seeds are ready to become new plants. Some seeds fall to the ground at the base of the plant where they will grow. Some pods or fruits open and the seeds pop out. Sometimes when birds eat the berries, they take the fruit with them and they drop some of the fruits and drop the seeds. Other seeds fall into streams and ponds, rivers, or even the ocean, where they travel on the water until they stick to the dirt along the way on the shore and start to grow. And here's a coconut starting to grow. The wind can scatter the seeds too. Some seeds have fluff on them that lets them float to the ground like tiny parachutes. Others have wings that spin as they fall. Animals help to scatter seeds too. They hide acorns and nuts in the ground. Some seeds have hooks that stick to the fur of animals or people's clothes. Later, they drop off onto the ground. A flower bed or a vegetable garden is beautiful. Seeds are planted to grow in the garden. The seeds can be purchased and bought in small envelopes or boxes. Directions explain how to plant the seeds. The beginning of a plant is curled up inside of each seed. Food is stored inside of the seed too. The seed has a seed coat on the outside to protect it. So every single seed has a baby plant inside that's ready to grow when it has everything it needs. A seed will not sprout and grow until certain things happen. First, it must be on or in the soil. Then it needs rain or other types of water to soak the seed and soften the seed coat. And what this book doesn't mention is that it also needs it to be warm enough in the soil. In the middle of winter, seeds are not going to grow as easily as they will grow in the spring and the summer. When the sun shines and warms the ground, the seed coat breaks open and the seed begins to grow. This is called germination. A root grows down into the soil. The root takes in water and minerals from the soil for food. So the root always grows first. Then, as the root gets established and starts to take in water and nutrients and minerals, then the plant starts to grow up at the top. Up grows the shoot. Green leaves grow up from the shoot towards the sun. The plant grows bigger and bigger. The leaves make food for the plant from the water and minerals in the soil, the sunlight and the air all around the plant. So the leaves are using the water and minerals in the soil, the sunlight and the air to continue to help the plant live. Finally, the plant is full grown. Buds on the plant open into flowers that then will hopefully get pollinated, and then new seeds will grow again. Many of the foods people eat are seeds, fruits, and pods. They are all full of nutrition, vitamins, minerals, and they're really tasty too. And that's the end, boys and girls. And I do want to encourage you, if you have any types of seeds at home, this would be a great week or a great time to ask your adults, hey, let's plant some seeds. Do we have any seeds at home? And maybe you can plant some flower seeds. Maybe you can plant some seeds for some vegetables. But in this month of April and May, it's a great time to plant seeds in pots or in cups or out in the soil outside of your home or outside of your apartment. So, thanks for reading with me, and I hope you'll continue with the learning for the week, where we are going to be learning, and even I need to refresh my brain even more about the parts of a flower and the parts of a plant and why they're important. Bye, guys.